They say it's easier for us to get naked and have sex than talk about it.
It is a lot easier to talk about intimacy with your partner when you feel safe.
Sex is the thing that hurt me the most. Reclaiming it has been very powerful.
What you're willing to share of yourself in an intimate relationship sexually. Not to reclaim that, something that important, I think, is tragic.
They realized they were never broken and it was never their fault. And they deserve all the pleasure and duality as usual. They're grieving that version of themselves who didn't know that and who didn't believe it.
I wouldn't take away my experience because of that. In the end, I love who I am, and so I'm going to love the journey that I've also been on.
So my recommendation, everyone, just slow down. Slow down, and you are worthy of pleasure.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Seth, and this is The Forever Young Show. The most powerful force in this world is a woman who knows who she is, why she is here, and what she wants to accomplish.
And that's where self-care comes in. As a woman, it is my opportunity and my responsibility to take care of me.
Self-care for your mind.
Self-care for your body.
Self-care for your money.
Our mission is to serve women as they fulfill their irreplaceable roles in families, society, business, the fabric of humanity.
So let's get this show on the road.
I just want to say, do you know what a chicken list is?
No.
So like somebody that you're like, oh, should I reach out to them or not? I don't know.
Like a
You're
fangirl
you're
list?
chicken about it.
Okay, yeah, I have a list.
You're totally on my list. So
Oh,
I'm like patting my back that
good job.
I did it. And I'm even more grateful that you said yes.
You know what? I like doing this. And see, I get to meet new people.
Yes.
So why
So
not?
close too.
I'm not scary either.
It's true. You're not. You're not scary. It's just, my trauma and insecurities that I'm working through. That's
Yeah,
all.
aren't we all?
And working through them very well, by the way, I will say.
Thanks.
Like
Hmm.
as your number one
We
fan.
all need the supportive partner.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, we don't need it, but it's sure great.
Yeah.
Some people are single by choice. Come on. We have
It's
to
true.
include everyone.
Yeah. I was just going to say, not to banter about, not to get so honed in on words, semantics, not to be, it's not just semantics, but you're right. Like something I learned through going through divorce. Stephanie and I have both been through divorce. We didn't divorce each other.
Okay.
But, we found each other after a previous life. One thing that I did find was, just like you said, like, I don't want to say I don't need anybody because we all are interdependent, but at the same time, it's practically impossible to have a healthy relationship with somebody else if you're not healthy yourself. Right.
Oh,
So
1,000%.
like what you're saying, you don't need somebody, but at the same time, what I found out is, I didn't need anybody. Dang, I'm good. Dang, I'm good.
And then you meet Stephanie and the mirror work starts and you realize you need her.
It is so true.
In order to go to a level that I couldn't by
Yeah.
myself.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how do we find that for people who don't get divorced? Because I've seen very few couples navigate that where they shift and it works and it's beautiful. And I want it for everyone without having to go through the divorce of like,
Right.
I can do this and figure out myself. And wow, what a beautiful thing it is to mirror to my partner and find this healing that, like you said, like I thought I had self-love. And then all of a sudden I had so many parts of myself I was not loving. And it showed up because of my partnership.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the work I had done before didn't even touch it. It's crazy.
Yes.
Well, that brings up a question. Like I've actually thought about this
Okay.
and nobody's ever brought it up. Thank you, Ashlynn. Like I've thought about this, having gone through divorce and feeling like your knees, feeling like I was decapitated. No, not my head, but that my legs.
But maybe.
Yeah.
It's true.
Listen, if you were there, it was.
I just thanked my friend yesterday. Like I still can't believe you were with me through that. Like, oh my God. I was so much during that. We're never too much, but I think I was during that time.
Well, the thing about, feeling like I was chopped off, below the knees, right? Speaking metaphorically, obviously, and really was forced is not the word, but forced through situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many people, so many of us are forced to do something. We're put in these situations, but then we never change, right? Mm-hmm. The situation requires something of us. And so,
Mm-hmm.
wow, Seth Mulder, right? Like I realized, that, wow, God wasn't wanting me to be in this little tiny box, but there was no box, right? So step out and be you. And when I was me, I'm going to tell you, Ashlynn, like I said, like, dang, man, I'm loving being me. This is so fun.
Where have you been all this time, right?
Tell me about it.
Right.
Tell me about it. Just a shadow, just parts and glimpses.
Mm-hmm.
And it shifted and changed, right? Like I was me and then I wasn't me. But I've thought about that. Like what is required? Like if Steph and I had married young, or you initially got married at 19, right? Oh, 18.
I was 18.
You were 18. Yeah. 2 weeks before you were 19?
2 weeks before my 19th birthday. When people ask, I usually say too young.
Yes.
Do you need to know it was too young?
I did not know who I was.
I was 22 when I got married the first time. And I just think, I look at the marriage and the relationship that we have now because of what we've gone through together with someone else and together really bad with somebody else. And then together with me, like me with me, right? For actually, first night I can't remember, like when we were first dating, I said, just so you know, I'm going to lay it on you, Steph. I'm tripolar. It's me plus me plus me, which of course that's not even a thing. But I just thought I'd let her know. I warn you that I'm beyond bipolar, right? There's an extra me. Anyway, how would we do it? Like, how do you do it? Because I've never been there, and it never worked out for me, right? We weren't able to get over that hump. And of course, divorce isn't the answer for everybody, right? And like that's not. Oh, well, let me tell you, folks. If you want to find, because we look at remarriages, and guess what? Like most are no better off.
Yeah.
I should say that we have so many of the same problems coming in that we drag into it, that we drag through it, and then we drag out of it. So you posed a real good question.
Drag out of it. Ew. It's so true.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yes.
We're tracking it along and meeting new partners. And it's no wonder, there's some people who are not afraid to remarry and some people who are. I'm one of them who is afraid. And so we are currently taking really small baby steps month by month to prepare ourselves for something we're both afraid of.
Yeah. I think even when Seth and I were dating, we took turns, I felt like. Maybe it wasn't necessarily at the same time very often, but we took turns where one of us would kind of back up a little bit, mostly him.
Well, I was going to say, I was like, wait, did you take one of those turns? I would feel a lot better if I knew that you took one of those turns, because it seemed like it was just me, like, here we go. I'm like, hey, babe, I just need a weekend by myself. I need a week. Like I need space.
It's true.
Yeah. I think for both, for both of us, he's never been married and I have been married 21 years and divorced. It's fear of losing ourselves again. Like he lost himself in past relationships and now he's found this new version and he's like, I don't want to let this go. And yet we're both going, we live like we're married. What are we doing? It's not like, it's really not going to be that much different, but it's the words, I guess.
I think just coming into my own after those experiences, at 30, finding myself, divorced at 37 with 6 kids, 37, 38, and relearning who I was in some ways, discovering who I was in others, and absolutely just cementing who I knew I was and loved. Like it was kind of like, there's the tripolar part. There were the three-headed dragon. But today, I don't have that worry. Number one, because I know you're super healthy. But also it's like, girl, if you weren't healthy, or if you didn't accept that, I'm not backing down this time.
That is true.
Yeah, we have a voice.
I have a voice.
True.
I am not betraying me, moving forward. I'll be compassionate. I'll be understanding. I'll have proper boundaries. I'll respect your boundaries. But at the same time, like, me and my identity are not going on the altar this time. They're not going to be, they're not in, they're not going to be going through the guillotine. We're back to decapitation.
Can I just ask a question? Because I feel like I didn't even know I was missing parts of myself. I didn't know I had lost myself. I didn't know that I was self-betraying, that I wasn't using my voice. I was just trying to be a good partner and save a marriage in many ways. And we made so much healing together for 7 years. And we found a lot of happiness in the rebuild. And it's this where people are like, you said you were happy before, and now you say you're happy now. Like, it doesn't make sense. So question to you is, I did have happy moments in the end. And now I found a new kind of relationship. And I am happier.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I wasn't here. There is still the good and the bad, just like there's good and bad over here in the new one.
Yeah.
But it's a different level that I ever was at before. And I'm not saying I could never have reached the level I'm at, but here I am. So
I always used to say,
where are you at?
Ashlynn, I used to always say, well, before I knew what I was coming into, like before I went into the storm, I was the happiest guy in the world because I choose to be. Like that's the part cemented. Like that's the always awesome part about me is that, listen, I'm adaptable and I'm going to make it work. And, my faith and my identity and my perspective, like I'm just a doggone optimist, right?
So good. So jealous.
Now, having said that, so I was happy and I found happiness where I could. It's like when you're hiking in the mountains and there's this rock with this little crevice and there's a beautiful little flower growing out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, of all the places, but this is where you were dropped and this is where you're blossoming. And, so we could postulate, well, what if that flower were somewhere else and it was, the seed was dropped? Then we would have that iteration, but it's dropped right there. And those things are beyond, maybe us, in large part, the big machine, the big wheels turning. So that was me. I was that flower. And so I found joy where I was. But what I didn't realize was I was also giving up so much of myself in order to make in order to seek to compensate, to be accepted, not to be railed on. Right. There were lots of motivations. I'm terrible. I'm not a terrible pleaser. I am a pleaser. Like I have that part of me too. Right. So in order to please, in order to get, acceptance. Right. So it was that balance. Yeah. Was I happy? Yeah, absolutely. Because I choose to be happy. Right. Are you kidding? I chose this person. I chose these kids. Right. Life's beautiful and I'm going to focus where I can. And much of that started to erode away because of the relationship, right? So much so, honestly, that like I didn't, in order to keep peace, and this is where I started to lose happiness. Now, it was like my space just got smaller and smaller
Mm.
and smaller. And pretty soon I wasn't in a garden. I was in that little crack, and I'm going to be that flower. That's me, like didn't wear the clothes that I typically would wear. Didn't do the activities, didn't play basketball, didn't exercise, didn't fish, didn't try new things that I had wanted to all the time. This is where it really is tragic. Didn't create the memories. And I was a be-at-home dad, so I had dang good memories with all my kids, but stopped singing with my kids because that wasn't accepted, right? Stopped singing by myself, frankly. Stopped smiling. Like that was on the chopping block. Like, you got to stop smiling. Stop talking with emotion and passion and the breath of life, right? And so again, I'm just in this crack, and I'm going to bloom and do what I can, even though something seems off, right? But maybe it's me, right? Maybe I'm a narcissist. Maybe I'm a narcissist because that's what I
I'll
was
go
told.
do more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Myself more.
Yeah.
For sure.
So there was a point where a spiritual advisor said, Seth, you need to be you. Like, you need to be you, unapologetic. And, basically not his approval, but like, dude, you're awesome. Right. He didn't tell me that, but that was the idea. And it was like a light bulb went on in my head. I'm like, yeah. And it sucks that I'm probably going to lose this person. Right. Or this love that we've had, or this relationship, this relationship we've had. And I still hadn't accepted that yet, the letting go part. But what I did accept was, it is not okay for me to be me. It is divinely appointed. This is the way for me to be me. And that's why I say, like, I couldn't give that up. Like, I have so much fun being me, right? That I wouldn't give that up again. Like, it is not going to happen. And just to your point, Ashlynn, oh my goodness, I'm not in that crack anymore. I'm 10 million acres of blooming Indian paintbrush, daisies, whatever you want, right? Gerber, anyway. And I have there's a new level of happiness that I never had been able to experience because I hadn't fully developed.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing that, which was beautiful, by the way. It makes me think of something I read recently, and this is what spoke to me. I'm currently, like, in list of priorities, self, and then my partner, and then our relationship. And in my marriage previous, it was reverse. It was relationship, my partner, and self.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I'm like, I think you could figure this out if you were married. You just need to maybe swap where your priorities are.
Well, and it also takes your partner that wants the same thing.
Depends on the partner for sure.
But the partner's always in the middle. Like, they're always important, but yeah. Oh,
yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, if you're in a relationship that's unhealthy and they're not willing to step back and take a look at themselves and change, then no matter which version of yourself, like, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So
even if you're with a great partner, and this is one of the things that married couples, regardless of their past, like, this is what we have to learn. It's kind of like you're talking about, kind of like the divine triangle. You're talking about divine priorities, right? That even if you're with a healthy person, if you both don't have the tools, then it can be difficult. Or, if one of you, doesn't want, like, you both gotta wanna and be willing. I've always said this since my divorce, and that's been 13 years, right? I said, what I learned about love and marriage and relationship is love. And this is kind of like your priority list, because like, how important is love in a relationship? It's pretty doggone important. But what I learned through my experience is love is not the crowning or foundation. I don't know. Love isn't the most important thing in a relationship. For me, what I learned is it was choice. Because once somebody chose to be there and chose to give themselves and chose to play in the relationship, right, to invest in it, then you had the opportunity to, up on top of that, to build. But if you didn't make that choice, if you didn't feel like you were making that choice with no strings attached, if you will, with your agency, then any love that you tried to build on it was on a faulty foundation anyway. So
one thing that I didn't bring up, because I knew that I wanted to ask you this question, is what are you most passionate about right now, and what are you doing about it?
I'm passionate about that. It's a mixed answer. Okay. I am passionate about this online program that I am creating. It's called the Rise Within Gathering. And it's basically taking my in-person retreats that are 1% of my community can go to, and saying, hey, I want it to be more accessible to anyone wherever they live, whatever their circumstances are. And they get 10 weeks live content with me where I break down all the parts of the retreat plus more, some fun stuff. So that's what I'm most passionate about. That's what I'm working on. And what am I doing about it? I'm avoiding it. So I'm super excited, but I have to it also scares me because I want people to have this so much. And I actually gave up all my retreats this year because it just felt like it just didn't feel right to only give to 1% of the people who want it. And so this program is opening up something that I haven't done before virtually, is saying I can work with you no matter if your story is not mine. And currently I only run small intimate groups for women after they've been betrayed or women after divorce. And I have all these other people in the community saying, well, we want to learn those things too, but we don't have your story. So this is what I'm feeling passionate around. I'm an inclusive person. I want everyone to be included. So it feels good and it scares me at the same time. So I'm avoiding it a little bit.
Well, that's a good goal. If it scares you, right?
Yeah.
That means it's big enough.
Yes.
I love that you're developing something that goes beyond the 1% or whomever can relate to your story. Because I have been on a handful of retreats, and typically there's a mold. And if you don't fit in that mold, then it's like, oh, I can't go. And, or it's not for me, right? I'm not going to invest my time and my money into it. So I love that it's a broader thing that so many women can learn from.
My first retreat was very focused on betrayal, and I loved it. I loved the women, and I never did it again because I just felt like if we were going to a retreat to be empowered and to let go and to grow, we weren't going and saying, here's this hard thing. This is who I am. I wanted women to come and just say, here I am. And so that felt very different. So kind of the same thing with the online.
Well, I'm excited to see.
Me too. August 15th.
Oh, is that, oh, we're 2 weeks out?
Next week.
Yes. I know. That's why I'm avoiding. Come on.
So I think you had made some posts in July or something that Steph was telling me about, that July. I mean, there's a day for everything. Pretty soon we're going to have hours that are dedicated. This is the hour for, right. But that apparently July was the sexual intimacy month, like national or international. I don't know. Is that what it was?
I thought that's what you had said in your stories, but then I realized, oh wait, that's September.
Oh,
I just say it's called Sextember. I don't know when the national month of sex is. I should look that up.
Well, I was like, wait,
or intimacy.
My response was, why would you limit yourself to a month? Like, hello, like
then you will enjoy. Stephanie, make sure you're sharing all of Sextember posts and things because it is really fun. It started out very rigid, where it was actually just part of my healing to use my voice and talk about something that was very taboo for me growing up. And even as an adult, I have family. It makes incredibly uncomfortable that I choose to do this. But
that makes dinners more interesting.
But this is one of the deepest parts of my healing because sex is the thing that hurt me the most. I was betrayed and had a partner who had compulsive porn use with secretive. And so it was just this thing that hurt me for so long that reclaiming it has been very powerful. And I want that for all. So I share. And where was I going with that?
How you dedicate September to talking about sex.
So yes. So it started rigid and we as in me said you take every day of the month and you have sex. It's a sex feast. And I had done a sex fast in my former marriage to dismantle old beliefs, dismantle trauma and find things that I could start working through so that I could come back and have a healthier take on my own sexuality and a partnered sexuality. So a sex feast sounded like a lot. It is a lot for a lot of people. But over the years, I've changed it because everyone's in a different place. And I have a different crowd now where some people are single by choice. I have we're in all different stages. I'm just going to say that, and ages. So now it's just do something that brings you closer to your own sexuality, whether it's just being curious one day, or it's reading a book through the month, listening to a podcast, having sex, trying something new in sex. It's whatever you want it to be, but it's a reclamation, and it's produced many babies over the years.
Well, I can imagine. I'm just saying, 1 + 1. Like, I know where this is going.
I've had many people say they got pregnant during Sextember.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, you're welcome.
I mean, there's a whole lot of June babies.
You know what? And I have a lot of crowd who they don't like Sextember. It's very triggering and hard for them. And I understand that. And sometimes they just push pause and they come back when September is over. And the coolest thing is I have one of my group leaders who's been through betrayal and done a lot of her own healing. She said, I used to hate Sextember. I hated when you talked about it because I wanted it so bad and I was hurting too much to even dive into that healing. It was like, I'm just still working on betrayal stuff. Why on earth am I going to jump into something that scary?
Yeah.
And a year later, she said, oh my gosh, I'm participating in Sextember. This is the best. It's so fun. And so sometimes our progress may take the year to figure out that you're okay with it, but it's really a beautiful process, especially when it's these women who've been hurt in some traumatic way by something that they are now reclaiming.
I've never thought about it that way. Going through my own traumas and betrayals, throughout my life, I can totally see how that would be healing to reclaim that.
Yeah. I should probably talk about it more, huh?
Yes. It totally makes sense for me.
Not to reclaim something as intimate and personal. It's very personal, right? What you're willing to share of yourself in an intimate relationship sexually. Not to reclaim that, something that important, I think is tragic.
That's how I feel. And that's why I push it sometimes with more of my intimate groups. I push them, like today on one of my group calls, just hearing these women talk about now having sexual experiences where they're crying, and it's not crying because it's a scary and hard thing anymore. They're crying because it's beautiful, and they realize they were never broken and it was never their fault, and they deserve all the pleasure. And duality as usual, They're grieving that version of themselves who didn't know that and who didn't believe it and who accepted really unsafe or not connected sex for sometimes decades. So it's a beautiful thing for me to witness these women who are pushing themselves to do a much deeper work than, it took me probably 5 years into my own healing after betrayal before I jumped into that. It was just too scary.
So for everybody who's listening, like you have your own timing. You have your own journey, and if it's time, then great, take that step.
Yep.
Let's move toward that. But and if it's not, that's okay. You deserve that. You deserve to be able to reclaim that power over such physical, emotional, spiritual power in your life. Right.
Well, and one thing I wish I would have heard is, because the most important thing is you want to be with a safe partner. I would never push anyone who's not in that space. Yeah. But what I wish I would have known is that even if he's not safe, she's not safe, they are not safe, I can be safe in myself. And I can still start to unpack and unravel all of that and start to heal for me on my own. And that is how I started. When it finally clicked that I wasn't doing it for a partner, that I actually just had to do it for myself, that no matter the outcome, I could find my own spiritual place in sexuality, everything changed for me.
I think that's when I started to realize that my first marriage might not make it. It's when I realized that I had lost myself and that I was doing everything for him. And then when I did pull away and start working on myself and finding myself again and loving who I was, that he didn't like that and he wasn't changing, and that he was starting to show that he didn't like me because of it.
Yeah, which tells us so many stories that get trapped in our heads that we have to work through.
Yes. Thankfully, I feel like part of my story that's really powerful is the day that I knew that I was going to get divorced. I'm the one that got filed for divorce. I knew that I had done everything that I possibly could and then some.
Yeah.
And I was at peace. And I could walk away and I knew that everything was going to be okay in the end. Now, it was hell going through it all. But there was also some peace just knowing that there was absolutely nothing else I could have done to save this marriage.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And I think there is peace in that. Like, I've already done really hard things in order to put effort for myself and for this partnership. And I'm going to use the same tools that got me through that to get into the next chapter. And it was so messy. I recently had a good conversation with some married gals who said, sometimes it looks like you glamorize divorce because it looks so fun, it looks so great, I look so much happier. And so it was a really good thing to hear, because I said, how do I honor both? I've been both. I found happiness and repair in a marriage, and I found happiness outside of it and repair in myself. So it's really tricky for me to honor both sides because people have a hard time, from what they are saying, seeing that it was hard for me because I didn't show the nights where I was sitting alone and crying and so scared out of my mind how I was going to do this. Right before our interview just now, I had to film myself doing something scary because I needed a body double because I've been avoiding it for 2 months. I had to pay my taxes. And see, it brings up emotion. I've been doing it for years on my own, and there's still fear for me. Just as a divorced entrepreneur, that like the abundance, it still can get scary for me. And so I've set up the cameras like a body double, like, I can do this. And I got it done in 2 minutes instead of 2 months. And it felt amazing by the end. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. 1, I have money in the bank. 2, I have like a business. I'm so capable and I've been doing it for years. The things I was most afraid of after divorce were things I was already doing. I was already doing them. It was just different.
What does that list look like?
Running a business on my own. I had partners and I pay people now, but I was doing a lot of it, over functioning, not healthy, but I was doing it on my own. And when I finally got to a place, I think the same year I was divorced, probably like 11 to 12 months in, I went to my therapist and I said, I'm so afraid of running this business and making big decisions in a business. When I have 2 kids, I'm supporting 100%. Like, this is terrifying. It's different when I don't have another income, or it's different when I don't have another partner to say, is this a good idea? I don't know. It feels right in my gut. And he said, you've already been doing it for the last year. Like, did you forget that you've already made big decisions? I was like, oh my gosh. And I started to realize that all these things that I was afraid of going out with no one, going out by myself, I'd done that for years. But now, because I was divorced, it just felt bigger and scarier because I wasn't going home to anyone, but I was already doing it. So there's some 2 weird examples.
No, I think it's super relevant. I think it's super relevant. People, we worry about things that are in the future that really, 98% of them will never come to pass anyway. And, maybe the other 2%, you're already doing it.
Yes.
Right. Like, or doing something similar, like what, maybe you're not doing that, but what are you doing that is similar and showing similar initiative and similar success, similar skill set. Right. It's like, who was it? Was it Tiffany? I want to say it was Tiffany. We interviewed Tiffany Larson, who's the CEO of Days for Girls. Awesome organization. Okay. But I think she was talking about how women, particularly, for example, say moms who had a first career, which was raising kids when they were young, right? And now that they're moving into, kids are in school or whatever, or, maybe they're empty nesters or whatever, or they're divorced, or whatever. So many women worry about, how am I going to make ends meet? Understandably, it's a reality that they need to provide, but they worry about it. And like, wait, listen, do you know how many transferable skills moms have into the practical business world? And I won't even say moms, I will say women, right? I won't define them simply as moms. Like, are you kidding me? They have all of these skills that are directly transferable to the professional world. And frankly, watch out, guys, like, they're really equipped to do these things, EQ off the charts, right? So that just makes me think that there's so many women who really are equipped because they have the experience.
I think they need reframing of realizing their skills, because that is probably the most fear that I hear from women who are trying to decide if they are going to stay or go is, I've never worked. I don't have any skills. And so, yeah, it's going to take work, and there are resources to help us in so many ways. It might require some humble ego dropping. But yeah, I've absolutely been resourceful during some of the hardest times of my life, and I've asked for help. It's uncomfortable.
So going back to your conversation with your friends, saying that you make divorce look fun and easy. It's so funny that you bring that up, because I've actually been thinking about that the last 24 hours about, one of the reasons why I love watching your stories and your posts and everything, because you're so fun.
Oh, no. It's true. No.
And I was thinking about it in a way of, wow, she's really healing and finding herself.
Yeah.
And I guess I could really relate to that, partly because I went through it myself, but partly because I actually feel like I didn't go out on the limb as much as I probably could have to heal. And so I look at your healing and your experience differently than my experience. I was 24 when I got divorced with 2 kids. But yeah. So to me, it actually it's a positive thing when you look at you well-roundedly, because you do see all the great things that you have to offer women or people in general because of the healing that you have done.
Well, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I mean, I don't know, how do you quantify how you get somewhere without all the yuck?
Yeah.
All the hard, yucky moments is who made us, that's what made
Mhm.
us into these incredible humans that we are.
Absolutely. I wouldn't take away my experience because of that. Was it hard? If I could choose a different way, maybe I would. But
Yeah.
in the end, I love who I am. And so I'm going to love the journey that I've also been on.
If you were to take away those experiences, you would not be who you are today.
No,
You would
I
have
would
to,
not be talking to you.
and you wouldn't be able just like to cut it, just like slice it right down like on the screen when I was only half on, half off.
Exactly.
It would be so enmeshed in who you are that it would be very painful to try to separate, that. Yeah, because sometimes I think, oh man, this is going to get into your personal story right now in your relationship, because we were going to talk about that. But sometimes I'll think, man, I just wish that what would have been like if, like I'm a country singer, okay, and I listen to country music, and I listen to, Thomas Rhett singing about, how they knew, he knew he was going to marry her since 3rd grade or whatever, and I'm like, what would it have been like if Steph and I would have been the same age, which we're not, right? Like I was 9 years old when
I was born.
when she was born, right?
I was 13 when my guy was born.
There you go.
Terrible.
There you go. I mean, it makes a difference. Like I was 20 when she was 12.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
back
like,
then,
don't talk about under 21. It just sounds so weird.
right.
Or under 30. Like, just pretend.
Yeah, 30 and you were 20. Yeah. But you had this funny reel up on your Instagram account where it was like, had we known each other back then, and it was like your picture of you at 13 and him in utero, right?
Yes. That dang video went viral.
For a good reason. It's awesome.
I think it spoke to a lot of people.
For sure.
Yeah. We're not alone in the age difference, but after a certain age, it just doesn't. I mean, it can. We're not as, if it was 20, multiple generations different, maybe. But for us, there aren't a lot of pushback around the age. It doesn't come up. So
that's how I feel for us too, for the most part. I mean, every once in a while I'll joke with Seth and be like, your age is showing.
I do hear that when I have to get out my glasses to read.
It's usually when I'm just saying something very wise, which is pretty much most of the time. I'm either saying something incredibly intuitive and profound, or I'm just joking around. So
he's trying to joke and maybe somebody doesn't get it. Wrong crowd.
Yeah.
We got to try that reel. We
do.
Do it.
I love it. So I know that you're into reading.
Mm-hmm.
If you could recommend one book to women in general.
Just one?
Okay, maybe 3. Your top 3.
Okay, because I actually was thinking this morning. So I'm currently listening to The Way of Integrity. Let me look. I wish I had read the book Good Inside by Dr. Becky Kennedy right as I became a mom.
Oh.
It's a beautiful book. She is such a great follow on Instagram and a great read, where she talks about how to be a better parent, we need to be a better self and to understand ourself and the parts of us that get triggered by our kids and all sorts of things. So I love that book. So if you're a parent, Becky Kennedy.
Good inside.
Yes. I'm gonna say Brene Brown. I don't even know which one I would say.
Just the name Brene Brown, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, even if you just bought her coffee book, it's so beautiful, and it's not a book to read. It's just emotions and topics that she talks about. If you don't have it, you should get it. It's so beautiful. But all of Brene Brown's work is where I started in the unraveling of Ashlynn, because she studies both male and female and everyone now, but she only studied women in the beginning with shame and just how it was affecting the way that we saw ourselves and the way that we were showing up in the world. And so I took a 12-week course, Brene Brown shame resilience course. And my therapist said, I really think you should take this course. I said, no, I don't have any shame. I'm successful. I was like it was when I was a hustling entrepreneur. So I was top of my game. I was doing great, but my self-image and partnership was horrible, by the way. So I took the course because she said I had to, and it was eye-opening how much shame was driving my life. And so now, I mean, I don't hustle. That's the problem. I went from hustling to like, I got to do some work. Because all of my successes and successes and choices were driven by shame. I didn't want people to think I was this or that. No. I cared way too much about what people thought. So if you care about what other people think, start reading Brene Brown, anything, any of it.
Which one do you think? Because I am getting a lot better in that area, but I still struggle with it.
I started with, I thought it was just me, but it isn't.
Okay.
And I just felt a lot of validation because I really did think it was just me who was beating myself up. And I actually got a shame partner, and I would just text her or call her with the dual agreement that we weren't going to judge or give advice. We were just there to listen. And it just speaking your shame in the moment just brings it down. So it's way more, you just have a better ability to process it and move through it. So that one was a great one for me for that. And which one? I'm going to say Come As You Are. Come As You Are, but with the workbook.
Okay.
Because the book alone is fabulous for both men and women. And include everyone. But it just is so much of the understanding your body and their body and why we are the way we are, and debunking some myths and helping us understand desire, all these things. But the workbook is like going to therapy, because you go through, which this is going to scare you and you won't probably do it, but you should.
Editors, edit this out so people actually don't hit pause on the episode. No, I just
no, it starts with sexual trauma and our history of whether we think we have sexual trauma or not. Like, not having sexual trauma, you still have beliefs around sex. Like, sex comes easy to me. Sex is, there's still so much for us to undo. And so just me going through that and then really figuring out what I wanted and desired and needed for my own healthy sexuality really shifted things for me. So I love and recommend that book to everyone, male, female, all of us.
I have heard that recommendation a few times. So I think it's a sign.
Get it for September
with the workbook.
Get the workbook.
Yes. Yes. You're going to write it down for me.
Do it on Audible, and then you can both listen to it and you can talk about it. I think it makes for fun date conversation.
That's great. What was that look?
I was just going to make a witty comment, but I was ready to make a witty comment, and then I went there and there was no wit there. So I'm like, we'll just move on.
Just a comment.
2 recommendations for women in order to start that process to heal from sexual betrayal.
To Say that again. What
Two
was the-
recommendations. What like we've been talking about like we were talking about sexual trauma. We're talking
Mhm.
about and I believe so many women. I don't even know the percentage. I think it
It's
would.
high.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it would be.
For sure.
It would be way high.
Yeah.
How many women bear sexual trauma, are dragging
Yeah.
dragging around the baggage from sexual trauma?
Oh, I think the first step is honestly just acknowledging that you might have something that is blocking your pleasure. And that can be scary and hard because it can mean, "Ugh, I don't want to go to therapy. That sounds scary. Like, I don't want to dig stuff up." I hear that a lot. And for me, I think acknowledging that you have the pain, the next step for me was going and doing reprocessing therapy. So I did EMDR. You can also do ART. It's a beautiful, beautiful modality where you can be safe in your own body and reprocess really traumatic events. And so I started, my therapist said, name 3 sexual related events from your childhood, your young adulthood, and then as a married person. And so I wrote down all 3, and she said, "What is the one that's affecting you most today?" And I started with my young adulthood. And that was the first ever EMDR session I did. And it's the first session I realized I was raped. I did not know that because of my programming and being told certain things. I just thought I was being a good girl and doing what I was supposed to. So it allowed me to reprocess and realize, take some of that power back and to use my voice and to make it so that I don't have a physical reaction anymore when I think about that event or that person. And I can also enjoy things that were done during that time, that they were serious blocks in my relationship, in my marriage, for probably, I would say, 15 years.
Wow.
I missed out on 15 years of pleasure because of my pain. And so I know I'm not alone in that. I'm far from alone in that. A lot of us just think, well, I don't like it. I don't want to do that. And you don't have to. But if there's blocks there are so many resources for us to heal. So acknowledge and seek reprocessing trauma therapy. And the best thing, ART, accelerated resolution therapy, it's not available everywhere, but it is so much, it's like talk therapy on steroids, basically, but I don't have to talk if I don't want to. I don't have to say out loud these hard things that I am reprocessing in my brain. And I just have someone there in a safe space who is guiding me through a visualization where I can make it a safe space for me because it's not in my brain. So it's a really beautiful thing. And that is where I started. And it only catapulted me into Come As You Are, all these other things. And I've done online sexual courses for Christian, those who are raised Christian and trying to just understand what a healthy sexuality looks like outside of what we think it is.
Yeah.
So it's for religious people. I did it while I'm religious, and I've done it outside of religion. It's beautiful for both. If you're for men and women, truthfully. So.
Oh, that's great. That's powerful. Do you recommend a certain modality of processing for people who don't remember like their childhood or a certain part of their life?
Yeah. So that's a great thing with ART and EMDR. You don't have to. It's not meant for you to go dig things up. I think we get mixed up in thinking if I go to therapy, things are going to get so horrible. And yeah, they're probably going to get worse before they get better, but it's not going to be these scary big things. Your brain won't take you there if it's too scary. And so sometimes I'll go in and say, I know I have a block here where I've built this wall, I can feel it, and I'm ready to let it down, and I don't know what caused it.
Mm.
And I actually don't care. And all I do is I float. It's a meditation that he would put me through, and I was floating, and I sometimes found something small, sometimes not, and other times I found nothing. And it was just like, okay, well, let's just work on the block.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what it is, but we can still work with it.
Mm.
And that was my experience.
Have you ever done like parts work?
Yeah. I started doing parts work way too late, as usual, in December of 2023.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my therapist is amazing. My daughter started doing it 2 years ago, so I don't know why I didn't.
I've recently started doing parts work, and I've loved how it's helped me.
Yeah, it's a new kind of love, right?
It is. It is. And it's amazing. It's so incredible to me how things are connected in ways that you don't think that they are.
Totally.
And to get to the root of it and be able to validate that part of you that needs the love and validation and safety.
Yeah.
And then to, afterwards, I typically am like floating on air, just like, I don't know if it's that burden that's released or, from the process or what, but I mean, sometimes I am like the last time I did it, I was very tired for like a day or two. But yeah, that's one great modality that I found.
Yes, and if you don't have someone to do parts with, No Bad Parts is a great book. What did I recommend a different book?
I don't think you recommended that one.
Okay, No Bad Parts is parts work, and they lead you through several meditations to do on your on your own at home. So if you don't, I have a friend who she only read the book because she couldn't afford to go to therapy, and she's great at visualization and meditation, so it worked for her.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you read the Audible, I think if you read the book, it would be hard to lead yourself into meditation, but
that's true. Very true.
I have a question. What do you, in looking at the many women that you have and are serving and helping, when it comes to sexuality, blocks, is there a common block that you find is blocking that many women are carrying or are susceptible to, like let's call it a false narrative or a false belief when it comes to sex, right?
I don't know if I know the majority, but I hear a lot of it's so sad, but also really common. So I want you to hear this and not be like, oh, that's sad. But a lot of women don't get to climax or orgasm during sexual pleasure and believe that their partner's pleasure comes before theirs. And it's not so equal. Or how I look at it now is more this deep love and almost worship for the other person of just like, I adore you. Whereas it can feel almost the opposite in feeling used. It's not an adoration, it's feeling used. So I think that is what I hear the most commonly. And so it's really exciting. A lot of over 40 women have reached out and said, I had my first orgasm in 20 plus years.
Wow.
And it's heartbreaking and exciting at the same time because there is still a reclamation to be found in that. There's grief that needs to happen and excitement.
Yes, absolutely.
So my recommendation, everyone just slow down. Slow down and you are worthy of pleasure.
So true.
I don't think it really is everyone. It's guys, you need to slow. I mean, let's be real. I mean, I'm just gonna say it.
It's true.
I just feel like we've touched on it. We've talked about it today. But there's just so much to learn, I feel, about us
Mhm.
about me, right? I will never forget. I will never forget being in my late 30s and be going through some serious marital problems, right? Prior to my divorce. And my neighbor, who was in his 70s at the time, I think, said, Seth, let's go to lunch. And pulled me aside. We went to a local restaurant here. And then he just proceeded to lay like the birds and bees on me. But I'm not talking about the general version. I'm talking about very applicable thing. Like, I'm a grown man and I'm sitting here with my neighbor, like literally my next door neighbor, and he's like, Seth, let me tell you what to do. Right. I was like,
That's awesome.
the crazy thing about it is that is the most in-depth conversation I had probably with anyone in the world.
Yeah, I believe it.
Including my partner.
Absolutely. There's this funny.
Let me just say, at the time. Because now I'm married to this incredible woman. And we can talk about sex.
They say it's easier for us to get naked and have sex than talk about it.
Yes.
Isn't that wild?
Yes.
It's so vulnerable to be naked. It's vulnerable to have sex. And yet it's more vulnerable to talk about it. There's a lot of misunderstandings that can happen, a lot of triggers, a lot of blame and shame, and also fear. There's a lot that can happen. And so really learning how to, like you guys have, navigate those conversations is important. We talk about that during Sextember.
And I'm just going to say, and we don't have to wait till September either. No. Like, we can do this now, folks. Like, this should be a year-round thing. I'm just saying, a year-round thing.
Oh man, my account would change entirely. It's so much work, just FYI. So I'm gearing up for it.
I will say that, it is a lot easier to talk about, intimacy with your partner when you feel safe.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to be taken advantage of. I'm going to be heard.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Yeah.
Yes. Which makes it so much better.
I'm so glad you found that.
Well, the conversation and the action.
Yes.
It's interesting how you talk about how vulnerable people feel talking about sex. It's almost comical that it's more vulnerable to talk about sex than the actual action of sex, because sex in and of itself is one of the most sharing and expressions of vulnerability in the human experience. And yet, if we're not talking about it, then what are we missing? Right? Like what?
A lot of safety and a lot of pleasure.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie. Because the more we talk about it, the safer we feel. To, like, even me growing up in my head created a lot of rigidity growing up in Christianity around sexual anything. And so for me, fantasy, any of that was just like, alarms, that sounds dangerous. Don't do it. Don't even think about it. And fantasy had gotten my partner into a lot of painful things for me.
Right.
And so it just seemed scary. But the more I started talking about it, the more I started to hear my own thoughts and to start to recognize this isn't so bad. I did that course I told you about from Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife. And she talks about how normal's a setting on a washing machine, but how common it is for us to fantasize and not do anything about it, but fantasize. And that blew my mind.
Interesting.
I could fantasize about my partner and it's not bad. What? It sounds so silly for people who are like, what? But yeah,
Well,
sometimes
no,
our blocks are our own selves.
So true.
no, but coming from a dogma
Mhm.
where you know, there are very strict
Yeah.
laws or prohibitions, guidelines, like you can, use various words, various families, various churches, various religions, exercise those in various ways. But you talked about based on fear, right? Us being
Mhm.
afraid of, oh no, did I do something wrong? I just, it's interesting though. Wait a second. Let's just say that, we're in this type of relationship that I've got with you, Stephanie. And you talk about the word fantasize. And honestly, like, I'm just going to tell you, Ashlynn, when you said fantasy, I'm like, I just like, I had like, well, that's just I'm being vulnerable here. That was my
Yeah.
initial reaction. But on the other hand, it's like, wait a second. Like, if we can have sex, then why couldn't we think about it?
Yep.
And like, wow, that sounds kind of exciting. Like, shouldn't they go hand in hand? I'm just saying, it seems like, how could those two truly exist without each other anyway?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm getting hot and bothered just talking about it. Just thinking.
I'll let you guys get to it.
Oh my goodness. I am actually
That was
heating up in here
awesome.
more because I'm like, I'm crossing bridges in my own mind.
I know. I'm just over here smiling. Just like
10 years ago,
this is great.
10 years ago, we would have not talked about this.
That's true.
11 years ago.
That's true.
When we were dating. Yeah.
We've been almost married for 10 years in December. So.
No, we've been married
Congrats.
for almost 10 years. Not
Oh my
almost married.
goodness.
Okay, we are more than just almost married. This is.
I didn't even catch it.
I didn't either.
I caught it.
He did. We are married.
We've been married for almost 10 years.
Correct. Correct. Anyway, it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, again, because my own personal story, and because I think of what it can mean, and what healthy sexuality and sexual expression really means for us as humans, as people.
And the exciting thing is that it's ongoing. It doesn't have to stop. Like, there's new parts of us that get unlocked. What did I just see? I saved it because it was beautiful. But she said after 40, the older I get, the more sexually liberated I become. And she talks about how women prioritize pleasure the older that we get. We start to like wake up. Wait a second. Right? So you're lucky if you started young, but most of us don't. The older we get, the more we are willing to explore and branch out from our most common. And we just have a better understanding of our own self in order to have a great relationship with someone else. And that, you said, what is the other thing? The other thing that I hear most common is people say, they don't know their own bodies enough to, without using another person or using a toy. But just like, I'm out I have nothing. How can you find pleasure in yourself kind of way? That is a beautiful project to explore if you haven't already.
Well, and I find that, at least for us, the more vulnerable we are, quote unquote, in the bedroom, I feel like our relationship even blossoms outside of the bedroom.
Absolutely.
Like, just everything is up leveled.
Well, and if you're having great sex, then all your dopamine, all these great serotonin, all these things are elevated. And so your mental health, your coping is everything's a little easier.
So true.
Yeah, you're on the chemicals, right?
It's legit.
Yeah.
And I used to get frustrated, and like I really did think sex was more of a man's thing because it just seems so easy and natural for them. And here we are, complex women, and not all of us are the same. And you really have to explore to figure out those things. And so to open my world to, wow, we are these powerful creators of pleasure, and it's ongoing and never ending, and it's kind of a lot. And I went from, this isn't fair, sex isn't fair for it to be a woman. It's harder, it takes longer. It's so easy for someone with a penis. And yet, when I finally learned about myself and really started to understand sexuality that's healthy for me, it was like, oh, I am so sorry, men. We are the superior genitals. Sorry. So there you go. You can mark my words.
I see those wheels turning.
I'm just waiting for you to say something.
I mean, I may regret saying this, on a podcast, but I mean, in small groups, like I'm actually okay talking about this kind of stuff. So
it's good.
You
It's
haven't been
fun
talking.
to do a
I want to hear you
talk.
talk more.
Yeah, it's good to talk these things out with friends because we feel alone a lot, or just hearing a friend today say, "Ugh, I like hearing this, or this because it helps me not feel alone." This is a best friend who in this little moment felt alone in something that she shouldn't feel alone in.
Definitely. I think that was one of the biggest or eye-opening things when I was going through my first marriage, is going to a 12-step group for pornography addiction, and realizing that I'm not alone in this,
Oh, for sure.
and just how powerful that was. And that once I could help others that were experiencing the same thing, to realize that you are definitely not alone. The feelings, the thoughts, everything that you're going through is unfortunately common. It helps so much for healing.
Amen.
So much.
It's what gets us out of the stuckness.
Yes.
I was so isolated and stuck because I was too afraid of people knowing.
Absolutely.
So I just felt alone. It was my own fault. Dang it.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you what, I have this agreement with my closest inner circle where we challenge each other to not show up. We talk on Marco Polo a lot because I don't live by any of my friends close. And so we share wins in our marriages, in our relationships, in our dating, instead of just the hard things. Or women often connect in the heartache and the frustrations, and we're like, yeah. And then you leave and maybe it was fun, but you don't feel uplifted. And so we have an agreement that, yeah, we all have hard stuff. And if you're going to share the hard stuff, you're asking for eyes to see. I want to see this situation a little different. Help me have eyes to see. Here's what's going on. Okay. But my favorite texts or are the ones that from my friends saying, last night we had the best sex of my life. Blah, blah, blah. And they're not going into detail, but they're sharing a win that we don't normally celebrate and talk about. Who you're going to tell? You're not going to post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
But it's like, for so many women, it is so exciting to start to find these parts of yourself, especially as we age. And it's like, oh my gosh, who can I share this with? Yeah, your partner, but also I'm going to share it with a friend. And I think it really it builds a beautiful way of looking at the world too, of seeing more optimistic, like Seth, instead of just all the things we can point out that are not working.
I don't know that I
So
have
there's your challenge.
any friends to do that with, but
You might. You don't know. You
won't
don't know
know
until you ask.
ask.
Yeah. I honestly, I am that weird friend that I'm like, hey, you good with this? Like, can we be this for each other? And it usually is kind of awkward for the first couple. And then it's just like, heck yeah, I am so excited for you. And if there's words of encouragement or tips and tricks, then it's shared.
Get it? I don't-
Lots of like fire emojis.
The hot ones.
Yes.
The wheels were turning, and I was trying to think about how I wanted to capture this in communication. But to your point, Ashlynn, I have thought for the last, I'm going to say the last several years. I don't know when it started, but I have literally, it's been a revelation to me that, wow, women sexually, women are so varied, complex in a beautiful kind of way. I mean,
Yeah.
complex, not in just not convoluted or confusion, but complex in diversity and grandeur, height and depth. And I think the magnitude of pleasure that women can experience far surpasses the man. I really
It
think sexually
literally
that
does.
women are the crowning. Women in and of themselves, like, have the capacity, right? Like, innately, is what I mean. For the crowning and most supernal sexual fulfillment compared with men. You know?
It's true. When you say complex and varied, and it's, as women, we have so many different types of climax and orgasm that we can experience. And yet the world tells us we have one way of reaching that. And so it's really exciting and fun when you start to unlock different parts of you. And men, you have multiple too.
Great. Listen, I'm on it.
You have a couple.
Like, I'm on it.
You have a couple.
I'm glad to be who I am. I know who I am. I'm glad to be a man. But I'm just saying that I have had that realization, as an adult man. And I think how beautiful, honestly.
Yes. And that is a great way to look at it. Of like, you get to you can be a part of that beauty.
Sign me up. Here I am, as you wish.
Okay.
But I think it's a beautiful thing. I truly, I look at it as just like, I don't know. It draws me back, honestly, to, I was up in the mountains today and just in Mother Earth and the complexity of life and just incredibleness. And that's really how I've come to learn that, as your husband.
I love it.
Yay.
I love it. I don't think I've ever heard the complexity of women be spoken so beautifully and uplifting. Usually it's demeaning. Not from you, but
Yeah. Women are,
yeah. Oh, you have too many emotions, or you have, too much this, or anyways. So
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed that.
I'll put it on a greeting card.
Good idea.
We'll have to get a giant one.
All right, we're coming to that, but you are an entrepreneur, Ashlynn, and I think we love to cover financial self-care on the show because, like, really outside of maybe spirituality, like the big three when it comes to self-care are mind, body, and money, right? And more so today than a generation ago, because it's more prevalent today. It's more, we have more single women than we ever have, more single moms than we ever have, more professional women, women single by choice, etc. Right? Single by not by choice, right? Like,
yeah.
But maybe a thought or two or a question or two before we wrap up today, just on your perspective from a financial standpoint. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Just.
What are some common financial challenges or obstacles that women face, and how can they address them?
I don't talk about finances with my clients hardly ever. So I don't actually know what like a generalized feeling is. There's a lot of fear around money for women, especially if they have been taken care of. And for me, I have taken care of myself within marriage and now outside of marriage. And it is more fearful for me to let my partner now step in.
Mm.
And so I just say it. This sounds scary to let you pay for this, and I will let you thank you.
Yeah, that's
because
great.
I'm still working through it.
That's great.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What are key financial principles? And okay, as an entrepreneur, as somebody extremely well versed, well experienced in building businesses, providing financially, what are the key financial principles and habits that women should prioritize for long-term success?
I don't feel like an expert at all. I often am thinking, how am I even running this business? But I think a lot of us are feeling like we don't know what we're doing, and then it works.
Yeah.
But I hire the people around me that actually know how to do the bookkeeping and who can do my taxes and who can help me do projections of like, "Hey, I need to do this amount of work in order for me to reach these goals." And so I have hired people in my life to help me navigate that. Again, it's not a ton of money that I'm outsourcing. It's very small, but it allows me the headspace to actually go and deal with it. It's not my expertise.
I love that. And I think that's important. I think that in and of itself is a hurdle overcome.
1,000%. Even for me to hire people to run groups for me was really hard because my business is my name and my story. And here I am saying, they're coming to me with trust, and I say, okay, now you're going to go with her, and you don't know her, but she's awesome and safe, and I trust her. And they go. And that was really terrifying for me at first because it's my voice offering it, and then it's someone else's voice delivering it. And it's been the most beautiful experience because these women are so capable and they have different perspectives. And so it's been fabulous. And if I could hire more of the women I've mentored, I would. But yeah, it's the fear of like, I can't let these things go. I'm the only one who can do it. No, they can do it better than me most of the time.
If people are interested in reaching out to you, finding your course or your groups or anything, where can they find you?
Yeah, if you just go to This Is Ashlynn, and it's ASHLYNN.com. I do have there's like a how to work through triggers freebie you can grab, but I offer mentoring not one-on-one, small group settings for after betrayal, after divorce. Women around the world join me, all different, like join from your car, join from your closet, take a break at lunch, doesn't matter. And then in 2025, is that 2025? That sounded weird. In 2025, I will be bringing back my in-person retreats here in Utah.
Yay.
And so that's exciting. That is something I absolutely love. They are a combination of healing and fun. And it's kind of more fun. So a lot of women are just missing out on that and want it back, that playfulness that we have lost in motherhood or careers or whatever. And so that's really fun. And then I have my online gathering that will be coming out periodically starting in August.
Rock and roll. Thank you, Ashlynn.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
so
for having me.
appreciate you.
You guys are great.
And cut. It's a wrap.
Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for sharing this episode with that one friend who needs this conversation. Thank you for all the ratings, the reviews, the comments, and especially the support. We so appreciate you.
Now, if you want to take a peek behind the curtain and be the first to know about special previews, backstage updates here at the show, and especially some private collection content that doesn't come out in the regular show,
be sure to join our VIP community at theforeveryoungshow.com.